G'day groovers, rockers and in between. This is Vinyl Vibes. I'm your host, Jack Hodgins. Today we are talking with 70s pop star Issi Dye. Issi first got into music after hearing the likes of the Everly Brothers and the Beatles. He formed his first group, Double Trouble, in 1965. In 1969, after singing backing on the Town Criers hit Everlasting Love, Issi came to the attention of Festival Records and soon released his first solo single, Incense. It would be a top 20 hit in Melbourne, bringing opportunities for further singles and TV appearances. Issi would record his last single in 1975 and soon embark on a career as a TV host. In the 1990s, he journeyed back into music, this time doing tribute shows to the likes of Johnny O'Keefe and Al Jolson. Today, Issi is still doing tribute shows all over the country. G'day Issi, and welcome to Vinyl Vibes.
Oh, it's great to be on the front. Thanks very much for inviting me, Jack. I'm looking forward to it, and anyone out there listening that may not have known that I've been around for all these years, we'll try and enlighten them a little bit. That'd be great.
Well, that sounds good, Issi, and it's good to have you on the show too. And I wanted to start off in the beginning. I read you were born in Austria in 1946. I think you lived there for your first 3 or 4 years of life. I mean, do you have any memories of Austria?
Look, I don't really have any memories of it, only that I remember the snow when I was a little fellow and skiing, just little 3 or 4 year old. My parents came after the war from the concentration camps. They were transported to Austria to, rehabilitate and to be deciding where they wanted to travel in the rest of the world. And anyway, we stayed in Austria for a few years, and then all of a sudden the opportunity came to come to Australia. And my father said, "Well, look, let's go to Melbourne." And the rest was history. We came out in Melbourne in 1950, and we've been here ever since. It's been terrific.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned 1950. You came to Australia. I mean, what are some of your early memories of Australia?
I guess I used to be called a wog and all those strange things. But we used to give as much as we got, and there were at the time that I came to Australia, there was a heightened immigration from Europe, and so there was a lot of Italian people from Poland and the different countries in Europe that were rehabilitating or reinventing themselves and coming to a beautiful new country, Australia. And all of a sudden, the Aussies are, getting inundated by all these Europeans with the different accents and different food and it was a terrific time. I mean, it was an amazing time in the 50s to be in Melbourne because it was all growing and all new things happening. And I can honestly say, I had a terrific schooling and upbringing in Melbourne. It was terrific. At the time that I was a little fellow, of course, the music of the 40s was the popular music. And all of a sudden, by the time I got to Australia, and into the 50s when I was just a young fellow, like 8 or 10 years of age, the music of Elvis all of a sudden came out, and it changed everything. Blackboard Jungle, the movie came out. People like Bill Haley and the Comets started to do this rockabilly, rock and roll. And in saying that, it really was an amazing time because it gave teenagers a chance to rebel against anything else and say, look, we don't want the old music anymore. We want this new stuff called rock and roll.
Yeah.
Which is ironical when you look back on it now. You think, oh my God, that's 70 years ago. But yes, it was a great new time. And the first record I ever bought, I was only 10 years of age or something, and I bought that wonderful song by the Everly Brothers called Kathy's Clown. It was one of the early ones that I couldn't believe how fantastic it was. What's so ironical, Jack, is today I've been doing more tributes to the Everly Brothers than ever before. A friend of mine and I, we joined together and we love the music of the Everlys. And to think that it was the first song I ever picked up 70 years ago, that's pretty amazing, actually.
When did this fondness for singing kind of start?
Look, I was already singing some rock and roll songs at school when I was only 10, 11, 12, just doing it socially at school, but I wasn't thinking of it as a career. It was in those days, it was just a bit of fun, and we would sing the songs of the Beatles or Johnny O'Keefe, and that was all good. But it wasn't until I got towards the end of my schooling and started to go into, before I went into university, that I realized that I was able to perform in front of an audience for a length of time, and people keep encouraging you, and it's good like that. And then all of a sudden, I was offered in a TV program in the 60s called Turning On with Baby John Burgess, who's you probably remember John Burgess was the guy from the Wheel of Temptation or something, whatever they call it. He was a famous host of game shows, but he was also a top radio man, and he put together a TV program, and they gave me a slot on the TV show, and of course the rest was history. I then thought, well, this is good for a career, and I might try and pursue it, and I've continued on in all those years, mate, nearly 60 years.
Your first group, if I'm right on this, Double Trouble, I think you formed it with Gary Young. I mean, take me through that.
Gary and I lived opposite each other in Melbourne, in Baldwin, and Gary had been a drummer for a couple of very well-known singers called Bobby and Laurie, who had a couple of number ones in Australia. They were on all the TV shows. Gary was their drummer, but he was also a great singer, and he wanted to go out on his own and sing. So him and I formed the Double Trouble duo, and we went out and sang hit covers from the Rolling Stones and the Everly Brothers and all these guys. And look, again, it gave us something to do that was a different thing to the norm. We were, instead of just being a solo artist, we would go out as a duo, and we used to dress in the same sort of look, the same boots, Beatle boots, as you call it, tight pants, big flared shirts, and it gave us a standing. And of course, that only lasted for a couple of years. And then I realised that I was going to really want to be a solo artist, and that's when I decided in the late 60s to join the TV show, as I said, the happening 70s and Uptight, and I became a solo act.
How did you get the attention of Festival Records?
One of the guys that I knew called Peter Goodman, he was involved with producing records. Again, he managed a band called the Town Criers, which had a number one hit with Everlasting Love. It was a national hit. And he was their manager, and he said to me, look, do you want to come and sing on this record? So I sang on their record, Everlasting Love, as one of the chorus line. And then he said, look, you're doing pretty well. Do you want to sing your own song? So he came up with the idea of a song called Incense, which was a hit in America for a well-known artist. I put that out, and all of a sudden, that got me on television every day, and between that and then the next 2 or 3 recordings, all of a sudden I was on national television every week. And of course, once you're on national TV, you can tour. You can go to Queensland, you can go to New South Wales, Victoria, all over Adelaide, Perth, and we used to travel all over the place singing all the songs of the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned your first hit there, Incense, and I had to listen to the original. I think it was by the Anglos. I think they did it in 1965. I mean, were you familiar with the song prior to, you doing your version?
No, I only that I knew it was a hit before, and like a lot of Australian artists, including Johnny O'Keefe with his songs, many of the songs of Normie Rowe and many of the artists, their songs were hits already on a previous year or 2 or 3 or 5 before in America, and were able to be released here by Aussie artists. So I did the same thing, and I wasn't aware of it being a hit here in Australia. So where we put it out, it did quite well for me. I guess it wasn't a number one, but what it did for me was it opened the doors up to allow me to do television all over the country and be able to be a touring artist, and that was terrific. It was a very a great time of my early career.
I've read too that I think it was produced by Gary Hoffman. What do you remember of the recording of Incense?
I remember recording it at studios in Melbourne called Armstrong Studios, which was the famous one where Johnny Farnham and many of the biggest bands in Australia that lived in Melbourne, the Masters Apprentices and all these groups from the 60s, all recorded at Armstrong Studios. And Gary was a radio announcer at the time, also loved to produce. So, yep, he produced my songs, but I was pretty green there. I didn't know much about it except I knew how to get into a studio and sing a song, but it was an exciting time. Yes, it was a very exciting time knowing that you're going to put something down and it's going to be recorded, and then all of a sudden you're going to find it on a record and somebody's going to go out and buy it. It's a pretty crazy thing, but it was a very exciting time.
I'd imagine that recording Incense was pretty much a case of doing it live in the studio, like very little overdubs, that kind of thing.
Yes, there was. Look, they were doing overdubs, but they were using those 2-part machines or something. It was nothing like today where you've got hundreds of lines to do different pickups and be able to do overdubs and all that. In those days, it was pretty raw. I remember a story that they told me, Johnny O'Keefe actually told me, because I worked with him in the 70s, that Johnny said that when they recorded Shout for him, they decided that to get the sound that they wanted, they would put him in the toilet so that he would in a cubicle in a toilet, so that he would have the echo sounding behind him, and to give that. I mean, we didn't have the echo producing like today, but so it just shows you we used what we did then, that we had, and the recordings were great. I mean, listen to Chuck Berry's "Johnny Be Good." Think about that. That was one of the first rock and roll songs ever recorded in the early 50s or mid 50s, and it still has a credible sound today, 80 years later, or 75 years later.
I was having a look at the B-side too of your first record, and I think it's called "A Simple Song," and it was written by Doug Ford and Jim Keys of the Master's Apprentice. I mean, how did that come about? Yeah.
Well, Jim and I and Dougie, we would tour a lot together. I was a solo artist, and in the days of the 60s, we did a lot of touring with different artists. It would be Russell Morris and myself, or Johnny Farnham, or Ronnie Burns, and of course, Masters Apprentices. And on a couple of the tours, the boys would say, look, we'll come in and we've written this song called "A Simple Song," and we'll produce it for you and sing on it for you. That was terrific. Although it didn't do very well on its own, "The Simple Song" once again gave me an incredible opening live on television. So I was able to sing that on Uptight and Happening 70s, and I had a big following for that particular song. And of course, it was an honour that it was written by two of the legends of music, and that's Dougie Keys and Jim Keys and Dougie Ford from the Masters Apprentices, who to this day have written some of the greatest Aussie songs of all time.
Number 14 in Melbourne, so it was a bit of a hit for you. I mean, do you remember hearing it on like the radio or anything like that? Yeah,
I certainly remember hearing it the first few times. It's a spine-chilling time when you're sitting in your little old car. I mean, your little 60s car with one little radio on, and you're turning it up, and all of a sudden the guy goes, "Oh, here's the song from that guy with all the hair, Issi Dye," and bang, you'd put Incense or a Simple Song on. It's a big thrill, and I'm sure that everybody that's recorded a song and had it played on the record has the same feeling. It's a great feeling to have it on the record. Sorry, on the radio. The key to the whole thing is going to perform it live on stage, and that was the key, to go to the shows, to the dances, of which there were many rock and roll teenage dancers. And we were able to go and perform it live on the stage, and that was a great thrill.
I think Hit Scene was a pretty big show at the time, and I mean that kind of gets me thinking. I mean, like, do you remember much about like playing on Hit Scene and shows like that?
Look, I remember Dick Williams inviting me many times to go on the Hit Scene show, and what I liked about Hit Scene, firstly, Dick was not a rock and roll type of person. He was a very conservative type of compere, not like today where you get the compares that are way out, He was very conservative. However, what was good about Dick Williams and his Hit Scene was that he would give you a few minutes before the show, you actually performed on your live song, he would give you time to talk about what you were doing, where you were going, and then he would say, now here's Issi Dye with his song. So it gave the audiences a chance to not just only hear you singing, but they could also hear you speaking about your life, like I'm doing with you now. But it was a rare thing on television to do that. So I do remember fondly my times going on Hit Scene and singing my songs. And, of course, once you've appeared on something like Hit Scene, which was seen everywhere in Australia, being ABC, it was on every TV station in ABC right around the country. All of a sudden, you were known in places like Darwin, Perth, Adelaide, Tasmania, North Queensland. Everybody knew you because they'd seen you on Hit Scene. So it was a terrific time, Jack, and we really appreciated that people like Dick Williams gave us a heads up and a chance. At the same time as Hit Scene was on, we had a few other shows. We had a thing called GTK, which was another little 5-minute segment or 10-minute segment that the ABC would have on before the news. And once again, they would play certain one or two acts would be on there. They would go out and record them. That was also huge. And, of course, in the early years, we had Uptight, Happening 70s, and people that had the TV programs in different states where you could appear on them, and you weren't there as a contestant on a reality show. you were there because you had a record out, and that they were kind enough to give you a go and let you sing on the show. So it was a really good time for artists when all the TV shows gave you a go, and that was a wonderful time in that late 60s. Early 70s.
A lot of the time when people would tune into television to watch these shows like Hit Scene, that was sometimes the first time that they were actually seeing their favourite group or artist perform their song, in like not in person, but actually seeing there in the visual form. I mean,
yes.
Now, and it's so interesting now because we live in a time where, there's stuff like TikTok and YouTube where there's music videos, music performances, at one's fingertips. I mean, do you think music has become more about the visuals today more than the music itself? Like, what do you reckon?
Look, I think that it's a two-way street. I think that the visuals are very important now because people love to see their artists do what they do, whether they're hip-hop, whether they're rock and roll, whether they're doing, jazz, whether they're doing country music or what I do. People love to see the visuals. And, of course, the film clips from the time of the early days of Michael Jackson and once the clips in the late 70s and into the 80s, when the clips started to become huge and popular, it certainly lifted the game. And it meant that you had to have not only a good song, but you needed a good film clip to be able to be played on TV and to sell your songs. Going back to Dick Williams and earlier than that, we didn't have anything else. So when we went out to perform live at a concert, people would only have seen you in black and white on the TV doing one song. So consequently, it became a much more exciting in those early years for the audience because they'd only seen you on TV doing one song in black and white, and then the next month, they're seeing you on stage right in front of them in full colour performing an hour show. So that part of it I miss, where we had the excitement of TV and then all of a sudden live. Today, it's all about the realities, the TikToks, the Instagrams, it's all that stuff. So it's not as exciting as it was. But in saying that, we still do need it because people do love to see you on clips. They love the clips.
Talking about your second single now, I think it came out in 1970. I've listened to it a few times, and I've read too that it was produced, I think, by Peter Goodman. I mean, was it different working with Peter than to your first single with Gary Hoffman?
Oh, look, it was. Peter was involved with that first one, but he wasn't the producer. But by that time, the 70s came in, he was already starting to do production and he'd already had a couple of big hit songs under his belt. And so, yes, it was nice that he gave me the chance to put One Last Kiss together and a couple of other, Family Full of Soul and a few of those sort of 60s style to 70s style songs. Again, One Last Kiss was recorded by Crash Craddock about 10 years before me. In the early 60s, it was from a movie called Bye Bye Birdie, and it was already a hit then in America. And I thought, well, okay, look, we've got a new generation of kids in Melbourne. Let's put it out, and it went well for me. Again, not so well on the charts, but certainly to this day, I still get asked, would I like to sing that song? Please sing it. So I'm still singing One Last Kiss and enjoying it too, which is terrific.
Did you have much to do with the actual reimagining of One Last Kiss, like making it more inclined towards the 70s audience? Yeah.
Look, I only had a little bit of an input. Again, being a performer, not really doing production, it wasn't my field, so I left it to the guys in the production. But to this day, when I perform it now on the, like in my concerts at the moment, I've changed the delivery of it to sound much more like a salsa 70s style. So in other words, where it was different, the one that you heard was, again, a different style in the 70s. I've now changed the feel of it again to give it a more modern take. And it sounds a bit more, how shall I say, cha-cha-cha, sort of more salsa-y sound, so a bit more sexy, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but in saying that, it's only because it's morphed into that, and a lot more people relate to that sort of 70s and 80s style. So I've continued to use it. But look, I still enjoyed recording it when I did, but I didn't have any actual input in it except the vocal side.
Am I right in saying that the Town Criers and the Masters Apprentices, they were your backing on a lot of your records?
They were. Oh, absolutely. The Masters Apprentices especially. And I worked, as I said, I backed up the Town Criers on Everlasting Love. That's me singing the harmony on the actual song, which says Everlasting Love. That's me doing that part. And then they would come in and help us. But remember in those days, we all grew up together. We were all very, very good friends. Everybody was very friendly. There was no bitchiness between us. There was no acrimonious. It was all very, very friendly, and we enjoyed touring with each other. And I certainly do miss those days. I guess it was an innocent time, but it was an innocent time. But I do miss those days of the camaraderie. That was terrific then. It was great.
When you were recording these songs, Lovitis, One Last Kiss, songs like that, I mean, did you try to bring the energy of a live performance to the recordings you did in the studio?
Funny you should say that. That's exactly what we were trying to do, because we realised that one thing is the recording and the other thing is singing the same song live, trying to sing it live on a concert stage, using a 3-piece band or 4-piece band. You were never going to get the all the intricacies of a recording. So I tried to make it as live as possible. So when I went out there and performed it live at the gigs, it sounded a lot like the record, which was terrific, and a lot of people related to that. And I did enjoy that. I certainly did that for sure.
April 1970, you supported the Beach Boys at Sydney Stadium. Do you remember much about that gig?
Not much about it. All I remember was it was a circular stage and it was a revolving stage. And I'd never been on a revolving stage before, where you're facing somebody and then halfway through the song you're facing somebody else, and then it's like you're turning in a circle. But you did get used to it when you're on the stage. But it certainly was a bit disconcerting. I prefer the stage, obviously, facing so that you can turn to the left or right and front. But you're not working to... Look, I know a lot of people do concerts in the round, where you're doing a concert in the round, so you're turning this way and then you've got audiences behind you and in front of and the side. But it is disconcerting if you're trying to do what I do, which is I'm trying to dance and sing and do movements. You're dancing with your back to someone and your front, so it's much better when you're facing audiences to do a set piece of dancing or something. You know what I mean? But that was interesting time working with the Beach Boys, and once again, it was an honour working with the band who were the biggest band in the world at the time, apart from the Beatles.
I'm guessing you would have performed the songs you did as singles, but I mean, were there other songs you were doing at the time as well?
Oh yes, no, you would only, if you're doing a set of 40 minutes or something like that, you do 3 or 4 of your own songs, and then you would be performing hits of whatever. Could have been the Beatles. I might have done a Neil Diamond song or Tom Jones in those days. The songs of Otis Redding, the soul music. We were lucky because there was such a fantastic array of songs out there. And when you put a bracket together, you could put a nice bracket of mixed songs, and you knew that every one of those was going to hit somebody. It was going to make someone feel good, because there's such a diversity of songs. And
in saying that, I mean, your third single, Teeny Bopper, I've read that you made some of the lyrics up in the studio when you were recording it.
I did. It was, look, in the end, we had to change. That single was dropped in the end because after it was released, because it was originally, the words were actually taken from the song called Little Queenie from Chuck Berry. And at the time, I didn't write it. It was Johnny Young was putting it together. He wrote the song and put it together using some of the lyrics of Little Queenie. And I don't know if you know that song, but if you ever listen to it, it's Chuck Berry's song. And in the end, they sued Johnny Young and the record label for misappropriating their music. And although the song, I was able to go out and sing it and perform it, it died in the shops because they had to pull it out, and it wasn't available after a few months or a few weeks. It wasn't available after a few weeks because it was copyright. But in saying that, it gave me notoriety, and it was quite good at the time. But unfortunately, it didn't help with record sales or radio stations because they weren't allowed to play it.
Yeah, I mean, which is a shame because I have listened to that record, and I mean, there's some. It's really like the music on it just sounds really, really good, really well recorded. I mean, and that lead guitar on that song. I mean, who plays that lead guitar? Do you remember?
Doug Ford played.
Yeah,
Doug from the Master's Apprentices played that. He was terrific. Great guitar player. But again, it was produced that time by Johnny Young, or written by Johnny Young, and so it was a different came down a different line, and unfortunately, as I said, it was copyrighted to Little Queenie, and to this day we go back and say, well, we probably shouldn't have done it, but it gave us a bit of notoriety at the time, and helped the cause when it came to me performing live concerts.
And of course, all of these songs that you did back in the early 70s, late 60s would have been recorded on analog tape. I mean, do you have fond memories of working with tape?
Oh, yeah, it was all on the tape, and the tape had to be clipped and cut and married together. It was unbelievable, the what they had to do to clip and cut. You're just watching the life story of Brian Wilson and seeing what he had to do with his songs of the Beach Boys. I can relate to it, because imagine re-recording what he was doing. He was recording his Beach Boys music using tape. He was cutting and pasting like for weeks, and it must have driven him absolutely nuts. But in saying that, there wasn't the technology that there is today, where everything is all electronic, which is fantastic, you know. But that's all right. That's, you know, the times move on, and you can't help it. You know, that was what it was like then. Imagine if Elvis came back and recorded today, how different it would be to the sound he had in the 60s and 70s, you know?
And I guess that's kind of an interesting segue, because I did listen to your fourth single and Family Full of Soul, and it's a different sound to your previous singles at that point, because it seems like it was a more like mellow song, a bit maybe.
It was mellow. Yeah. I think maybe it didn't work for me. Of course, it didn't do any good. But in saying that, again, it gave me a chance to do more TV. But by that time in the 70s, we changed our whole image. Instead of being the wild rock and roller that I was in the late 60s, early 70s, we were starting to it was more glam rock. By then, you know, more of that sort of Gary Glittery style, glam rocky thing, and more subdued, the David Bowie style. It was more of that. So we were going down that path, but for me, it didn't work. And although I was happy to have the song out, I realised that the recording thing was not going to work for me, and my future was going to be in television and then going out and doing live concerts. That was going to be if I was going to continue to make it a career, I was going to have to change directions, and I did.
1971, we mentioned Family Full of Soul, and then there was like a 4-year gap between that and your last your single in 1975, the Personality single. I mean, like, take me through those 4 years. Like, what was going on during that time?
In those years, it was, again, I wasn't what you would call, because I never wrote music. I didn't write songs like Russell Morris did or Brian Cadd and the guys that wrote their own music. I was just a performer that would perform other people's music. So what I did was, in the 70s, early 70s, when I joined the Happening 70 crew on Channel 10, it gave me TV every week, and I was able to go all over the country and perform. So I wasn't going down the path of recording. I probably should have, but looking back on it, yeah, I should have done a bit more. But I was so busy, flat out, running around the country, doing live shows. And then finally I thought, gee, I better put another song out. Well, it was probably too late by then. Good that it gave me a chance to record, and I used the opportunity of having a song out as something that I could go out and sell more shows. I could go out and say, I'm still going. I can do a TV show. I can perform. But my true love was going out and actually performing concerts, not recording.
Because in saying that too, I mean, that Personality single came out in 1975, and I mean, that was on the Image label, whereas your records before that were on the Festival label. I mean, how did that come about? Like, how did you get on the Image label?
I think it was because, once again, I think we finished with the Peter Goodman thing, and you know, I hadn't had a record out for a while, and then the Image label it could have been through Johnny Young or somebody, because Johnny Young and I were very close friends, and a lot of those artists, and I think I got somebody gave me an idea. Look, why don't you re-record that song from Lloyd Price? I was doing it in my concerts for years. I loved the song. They said, well, you're doing it in your concerts. Why don't you record it? Oh, okay, I'll put it out. So again, it morphed into putting it down. It wasn't really, as I said, when I compare my song Personality to the amazing song that was recorded by Lloyd Price, it's not in the same league. I mean, he was just fantastic. So I was never going to be able to compete with the original music So I just treated it as a stepping stone again, that I was able to use the personality song to perform on TV and go and do live concerts, but it was never going to take over and become a number one, because people already heard and loved the original Lloyd Price single. And so I was just lucky enough to record the song. It was never going to be a hit for me.
Something I really like about your how you go about the entertainment business, so to say, is reinvention, your ability to reinvent yourself. And I mean, that kind of got me thinking. I mean, you mentioned the disco era. I mean, did you ever think about going down that line of disco, or was that you just weren't going to touch it, or like, yeah, I don't know?
Look, there were so many good artists doing the disco and doing what they did. I guess it didn't occur to me at the time, look, maybe I should jump into that. It was more that the opportunity to become a television host came to me, and I thought, oh, okay, look, I'll it's like sliding door moment. One door closed, another open. So instead of worrying about not having a disco record, I went into the TV studio and started to be on television every week. So it gave me a new audience and a new direction, and I don't regret it. But in saying that, who knows? I could have had a disco song out as well, but I didn't get the opportunity then, because straight away the people that were involved in that realised that I was doing TV and I'd gone down a different path, and that took over my life for 15 years or something. You know, in the mid '80s, I moved to Queensland, and then I did the same thing up there. I took over there for another 10 years, so it was well into the '90s that I was still doing the TV. I was performing occasionally. I still kept performing, but not as much. And that the TV lasted into the 90s. And then I realised that my love was the live music, and I was wanting to go back to forming a band. And that's when in the about 93, 94, I put a band together again in Queensland, and I started to tour with country rock, and we did Tamworth and Gympie Muster and all the big concerts and everything. And slowly, I was rebuilding my reputation as a live performer again. And I'm so pleased because, 25 to 30 years later, I'm still doing it today. So that's great, really good.
And I think it was during the 90s that you started doing your tribute shows. I mean, take me through that, yeah.
Yeah, the tribute shows were amazing. Look, we were doing performances of an American artist called Al Jolson, who was the king of the Broadway in the 20s and 30s. So I did that show, which was again a cabaret style. But today, my main shows that I'm performing in the tribute area are the Johnny O'Keefe story, which I love doing. My crooners, which is Bobby Darin, Dean Martin, which I've just been doing on this Bravo cruise out of Sydney, which I've enjoyed, and I'm going to be doing it again next year for our Bravo cruise 2025. Again, not rock and roll, more into the crooner style, but that gives me an opportunity to do different songs. So it's terrific. I still do what I love doing, but it's nice to be able to morph into different music, and that crooner style gives me a chance to sing Michael Bublé and Dean Martin stuff. And I do like that. It's great. Yeah. It's not as good as Johnny O'Keefe. Not as good as J.O.K.
The J.O.K. tribute show, I mean, what's the, like, do you tell the story of J.O.K. as well as sing the songs? Like, what's the show kind of like? Yeah.
No, look, when I sing, I do a different type of show than most artists. I morph three different things in. Firstly, I tell a good story. I like to tell stories of the songs and the artist. Secondly, I like to sing the songs and of the artist, and also I enjoy dancing. So I can do three things in my show. And when I do the story of J.O.K., I make sure that I let people know he was my idol back in the 50s, and I was lucky enough to work with him in the 70s. So it was a full circle. He was a big star when I was at school, and all of a sudden, by the time I was in my 20s, I met with Johnny, and I was able to work with him, and it was a great thrill. And to this day, I've always tell a good story about my relationship with Johnny O'Keefe, but also love to remind everyone of the great songs that he recorded and make it a show. Yeah, I know that your station, the program that you put together is heard all over the country in different stations, which is fantastic. Good on you, mate. But if there's anyone out there that is in an area that I've not been, like I think Broome and Kangaroo Island, any of these places that I have not been to before, we'd love to hear from them. If they go online and they can send me an email through issydye.com on my website, and we would love to go out and visit them and perform one of our shows, Jack. I'd love to come out there.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see that happen too. I mean, and it's just that simple for like promoters or for venues just to email you?
Oh, yes, they can just get on. Look, I've got an email address called issydye@bigpond.net.au. So spelled ISSIDYE, issydye@bigpond.net.au. Or they can go on my website, issydye.com, send an email through that, and I will certainly respond to them. And if I get the opportunity to visit some of these places that I haven't been to before, I'll consider it a great honour. It'd be fantastic.
In saying that too, because I've had a look at your website and a good look at all the list of shows you've got on there. I mean, it's because there's other artists that do different shows on the roster. Am I right on that?
Oh yes, absolutely. No, I have about 10 different artists that work with me. A gentleman does the most amazing Roy Orbison show. We join together to do the Everly Brothers. I've got a gentleman does Neil Diamond, a lady does Dolly Parton, Dusty Springfield, the Frank Sinatra show. So I've got about 10 different artists that I work with at different shows. And on some of them, Issi Dye does his Johnny O'Keefe and Elvis show. So I sort of do my shows. I bring the other artists in and I perform with them. So it's a lot of fun when you're not only working as your own act, but you're also working with other artists. It's a great thrill. So if any of the venues out there like any of those artists that I've mentioned, Roy or Neil Diamond or Beach Boys or anything like that, just give us a call and we'd love to bring them out there for sure.
And is there the chance during these shows to hear any Issi Dye solo classics?
Absolutely, mate. And I definitely sing, oh, one last kiss, oh, baby, one last kiss. It never felt like this, oh, baby, not like this. You know I need your love. Oh, 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 give me one last kiss. Oh, my God. That was a bit of a hairy one, wasn't it?
I thought it sounded all right.
Okay, it's been a great talking to you, Jack. Thank you so much for that, mate.
No, thanks again, Izzy. No, I think it was really good. And, just thanks again for making the time.
No, look, it's a pleasure. And as I said, anyone out there listening, make sure you support Jack and his Vinyl Vibes. It's a great thing to have it on the radio. And we'd love to visit those areas. And if anyone wants to see us, please get in touch. We'd love to see them. And thanks again for the opportunity, Jack. I really appreciate it.
That was Issi Dye, 70s pop star. To check out the list of tribute shows on Izzy's roster, head to his website at issydye.com. Remember to share this show with other music fans, and if you really like what you heard today, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Vinyl Vibes, and to all you music lovers out there, stay groovy.